past 40 years. And today I have my special guest. He is a PhD in sports leadership, former NCAA lacrosse coach, FAR, and professor at Dominican University of California. No other than Mr. Samuel Vogel-Seidenberg.
Nice to see you. Happy to be here.
Welcome to Book 101, Mr. Samuel. And can you please introduce more about yourself?
Yeah, for sure. So I live in California. I'm now the faculty athletic rep and professor at Dominican University of California. So I teach sports leadership and I teach kinesiology. I was previously the head lacrosse coach there for the past 9 years, and then prior to that, I was coaching at University of Idaho and then Washington Jefferson College. And then I was also in the film industry for a few years in Hollywood, working there, getting that experience before going into coaching and doing that full time. So, but been a lot of work to get where we are now. But it's been a lot of fun to build the program at Dominican and now kind of help the overall student athlete body, student body rather than just the small group of lacrosse players that I was helping before.
For sure, lots of fun indeed. Dr. Sammy, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. My cheering squad is cheering for you.
I love it.
Yes. And today, let's talk about the truth about fighting in hockey. Historically, enforcers were seen as essential for team identity and protection. From your research, what were the actual tangible benefit terms believed that they gained for having a dedicated fighter during the era beyond, defensive thing?
Yeah, totally. Right. So, I mean, in the kind of, I'd say 80s, 90s, early 2000s, there was this role of the enforcer, right? And this idea that there was an individual that was on every roster that could, grit and grind, fight, create havoc on the ice, protect the star players, right? So you had this mentality, especially around players like Wayne Gretzky, who always had an enforcer with him in the lineup so that if anybody went after Wayne Gretzky, they were going to have to deal with this person. And so my research was really looking at, what is the role of fighting and hitting now in the modern game, and how has it changed, and is it still vital in hockey, or is it just something that's looked at more of as a tradition or something that was just in the past? So, my basic work that I was trying to do was do something a little bit different, right? So a lot of the research that's been done on hitting and fighting was specifically based on statistics and what is the impact based on a statistical outcome in a game, rather than actually talking to the individuals who are on the ice, who are experiencing it, and getting a feel for what's happening. So that was really my biggest thing. Is I wanted to do interviews, I wanted to do questionnaires, I wanted to do observations, I wanted to collect a decent amount of data to be able to see, does it actually impact the game in a positive way, and can it be effective in the modern game, more so than the way it was in the past, right? Because that role of the enforcer, of somebody who just is on the ice to fight, just doesn't work in the modern game anymore, because of the higher level skill, the higher level speed, the way the game is played now. But there is a need for that grit and grind, those players who can really, dig in the corners, who can fight, who can hit, who can do those things. And so that's what really I was looking to discover within my research.
Dr. Sami, what specific skill sets or player archetypes have effectively replaced the traditional enforcer in the modern NHL lineup?
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, the biggest thing that what the research kind of showed is that that role of just the person who, is a mediocre hockey player who can fight and hit, and that's really all they do. It just doesn't work. The kind of there are many players in the past who've been like that. Derek Bugard is one who comes to mind. Stu Grimison, those kind of guys who are really, more fighters, right? Where you've got players now who are more like Tom Wilson, who and you can even say Sam Bennett. You can even say Matthew Kachuk. These more modern players who can put the puck in the back of the net, who can shoot and score and make beautiful passes and make beautiful plays, but they can also get in somebody's face. And if you mess with my best player, you're going to have to deal with me. And so you're seeing a lot more of that type of aspect of the game come through. And one of the guys who used to do this was a guy named Bob Probert, who played for the Detroit Red Wings and the Blackhawks, and he was really kind of that true and mix of enforcer and skill. He could put up 60, 70 points a season while also you know being one of the scariest guys on the ice. And so that's kind of what you're seeing now. You're seeing guys who have the skating ability, who have the skills, who can impact the lineup in a positive way statistically, but also then do it in a way in the physical aspects, right? So again, guys who can fight, who can hit, who that if I got to go into the arena and play this team, I don't want to have to deal with that one player. And it could be in the sense of fighting and hitting, but it could also be in the sense of their skill and how they play.
How has the definition of toughness or grit evolved in the modern NHL, and what non fighting attributes are now prioritized as expressions of hockey toughness?
Yeah, for sure. And I definitely think it has changed a lot in the modern NHL, right? So before, the tough guys were the guys, I think there's a mix of it, right? The tough guys were the guys who, could fight and who were scary and, who would get a tooth knocked out and come back on the ice, right? And so the other thing I think now what you're seeing is you still see that. Like hockey
Yes.
players are tough, right? Like I think it was 2 years ago, Morgan Barron was playing for the Winnipeg Jets. He got a skate to the face, got a laceration all around his face. He had like I think 60 stitches. Put a
Mm.
shield on it, went back out and played the rest of the game. It's just like that kind of grit and toughness. Like that's just part of the game of hockey, right? Guys get hurt, those kind of things, and they go out and they keep playing. If it's not something like a broken bone, a concussion, something that they can't go out there and play again, they're going to keep playing. Minor cuts and bruises and lost tooth and things like that, right? So that's
Yes.
always been there, and I don't think that's ever been lost in the game. I think what again you're seeing is just more of the strategic aspect of that grit and grind, right? Like a lot of what I found in my research was the idea of intimidation. Specifically things like when we're talking about if I'm going to a game, right, and we know we have to play this team that is going to finish their checks, that's going to get in the corner. If I got to go get a puck from the corner and I know I'm dealing with a team that's physical, I don't even have to hit the guy. The guy's going to grip his stick a little bit different, and he's going to make a mistake with the puck, knowing that I'm a player who's going to come after them. So that's really the biggest thing that I saw is there was a lot more focus on the intimidation aspect than there was necessarily the focus on I've got to lay the biggest hit. I've got to fight this guy. It's I'm gonna let you know that I do these things, or I'm gonna do this 2 games from now from before, and then when I come play you, it's gonna look a lot different. So it's a lot more of that I saw, especially in the research. The intimidation piece was surprisingly something that was talked about in almost every interview organically. All of the questionnaires agreed with that piece. And so I think you're seeing a lot more of that aspect. Fighting numbers have gone down, not significantly, maybe 10, 15 fights a year, but they're in a difference. But realistically, I mean, it's still happening. It's just the biggest thing with the research that we found when it came to the fighting is there are two types of fights, right? So there are the strategic fights, things that kind of happen organically, they kind of happen within the game, right? And then there's something called stage fights, right? Stage fights are fights that like right off the whistle, two guys drop the gloves and start fighting. They go into the center of the ice, they wait it out, and they start getting at it, right?
Yes.
Those fights are not effective. The ones that are organic, that are within the game, that are after a hit or after a play, those are the ones that make more of the impact in the game.
Dr. Sami, a common belief is that a fight can spark a team or shift momentum. Does your research show any statistically significant correlation between a fight occurring and subsequent increase in goals scored by fighting players' team in a minute immediately following?
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, there's definitely a huge piece. I think the biggest thing that fighting does, and hitting and physicality is it really helps with team cohesion and team dynamics, right? So it really brings a team together. It really motivates a group to go out there and keep fighting and keep playing hard. When if you're at a live hockey game, you see this not as much when you're watching on TV, but when those two players who just fought come out of the penalty box, everybody on both bench stands up and they bang their stick on the
Yes.
board, right? And you
Yes.
only see that when you're in person, but like that's how much that means when those players take those actions in games. And so, yeah, I observed three different games throughout the season: one in the beginning, one in the middle, and then one at the end. And what I did find is that all three of those games that had fights in them, there was a goal scored, not necessarily immediately after, but pretty soon after. And in all three games, the tide changed within the game after a fight. In the game, there one of the games did have a stage fight. There was The tide didn't really turn until later in the game, so I didn't really feel like that played into it. But the two other games both had organic fights, and those organic fights actually did change the course of the game. Right, one team came back, won it in overtime. Um, One team kind of was a close game, then kind of blew it out after that. So it definitely does affect that, and even within the research, not just watching the games, every single person talked about how a fight is motivating for a team. So that was definitely talked about a lot within the interviews and the questionnaires as well.
Definitely effective, people. Truly effective.
Yep.
Doc- Dr. Sammy, fighting comes with a major cost, a 5 minute
Right.
major penalty. In today's highly competitive special teams driven NHL, does your research indicate that these penalty costs often overweight and any perceived strategic benefit of the fight itself?
Right, for sure. So yeah, so the biggest thing with fighting, right, is that if I fight somebody, I get a 5 minute major, the other guy gets a 5 minute major, and there's no loss of player on the ice, right? So if I
Yes.
fight somebody and it is organic and it's not an instigator penalty, right? So we'll talk about that, but the instigator penalty is the biggest one that causes the factor. So if I fight somebody and it's just me and the guy fighting and that's it, and we were the two that instigated it together, then in that situation I don't lose any firepower. Now, what I did find was that when players who are big impact players fought, right? So let's say your star player gets in a fight, that does, and especially if they're not fighting another star player, that does impact the game because you just lost your star player for 5 minutes, and so that does cause a factor. But in the normal scheme of things, when two guys are fighting and maybe they're not the most impact players on the ice, it doesn't really make any difference as far as um, you know losing a player or those kind of things. The aspect that does affect it is the instigator rule, right? So the instigator rule was implemented by the NHL, specifically to take out kind of these more stage fights, as well as things that are a little more dangerous, right? It's a lot about safety. It's a lot about those kind of things. So the instigator role, basically what it means is that, like, if I'm going after somebody and I'm trying to fight that person, and then somebody else swoops in and tries to fight me or instigates the fight with me, at that point that person who did that gets the instigator. So if I take that fight as the person who's getting attacked by the instigator, great. That means I get sent him off for 2 minutes, 2 extra minutes, and I only have five. He's got seven. Right. So,
Yes.
so that's the biggest piece that I think has caused a factor, and so that's why I think some of the fighting numbers have gone down, is because people are worried that what's considered the instigator. Am I going to, get in more trouble if I get in this fight right now? Sometimes you see guys, they shake their gloves like they're about to fight, and then they don't drop them, and
Yes.
then right, and then that other guy drops his glove. He now has an instigator penalty. I get to go back to my bench. He's got to go to the penalty box. So there's a strategic aspect to it as well, where it can be used in a way to kind of affect the game. But it doesn't necessarily directly affect it. If two guys are just going at it and it's a normal fight and everything's fine, nobody loses any bodies on the ice, it's all good.
Dr. Sami, as a PhD in sports leadership, what are your short term and long term goals?
Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, I mean, I think for me, right now, I mean, definitely getting into the role that I am was all about the PhD, right? So I've been coaching for years and doing the aspect, and I love it. I've got a young family, so it was important for me to have more time with my family, and so this role of the faculty athletic rep and professor gave me an opportunity to use my PhD right away as soon as I earned it, to be able to, you know, uh, have more of effect on the student athletes and helping them with their academics, and then as well as be able to teach and do those types of things, which I love as well. For me, the long term goals, I really would like to get into the NHL and working within the NHL, either for an organization or the NHL as a whole. I'd also, my ultimate goal is to be a general manager for a pro sports organization. So if that happens, then that'd be awesome. But that's where I'd like to be in the future. So
That'd be awesome for sure. And Dr. Samuel, good luck to your goals and looking forward for more success. And
thank you, appreciate it.
what will be your piece of advice for those people out there want to be a PhD in sports leadership as well?
For sure. I think the biggest thing is just, it's a lot of work and it takes a lot of time. And it's not an easy process, but just stick with it. It's worth it in the end. Getting to walk across the stage and get that diploma is totally worth it. And if you're thinking about going for it, the opportunity that it gives you when it comes to a career and things that open up is amazing. But I think even more than that, like doing the research and getting to really immerse myself in something that I care about so much it was so much fun. Like as much as it was a ton of work and it took me 2 years to complete, it was so worth every minute to be able to have that experience and to meet really awesome people and get an opportunity to put out something that I'm really passionate and I care about and I think is good. So I think it's one of those things that if you're considering getting a PhD, if you're considering doing anything that you really care about, just go for it. Don't let anybody hold you back and just go for it.
Yes, to meet cool people like Dr. Sammy, indeed. And can you please recommend a book that influenced your journey? Or
For
books
sure.
that influenced your
Yeah, yeah.
journey?
I was gonna say I have three books that really influenced me. So
Awesome.
the first one that kind of got piqued my interest in this topic was a book called The Code by Ross Bernstein. It's really it's about the code in the NHL, this unwritten rules about what is fighting in hockey, and these are kind of more of the ancient time of fighting in hockey, but it still plays into today. And unwritten rules have been passed down throughout the generations of hockey. And so it was really cool to read that and kind of understand that piece. The other one that I really liked that I read kind of after that was called The Grim Reaper, which is the life and career of a reluctant warrior by Stu Grimison, who was a professional hockey player, played for a lot of different teams. He's now a broadcaster for the Anaheim Ducks. But kind of one of those guys who like didn't ever want to be an enforcer, but turned into one of the scariest enforcers on the ice. And that's just kind of the role that was carved out for him. So it talks about his ability to be really good at this role, and then also why maybe it was a reluctant thing and something that was a little bit harder for him. And so that was a really amazing read as well, kind of giving both sides of it for the research. And then when I was doing the research, I was reading a more recent book called Tough Guys by Dale Arnold, that really just talks about the role of these tough guys. And so it was really interesting to hear that. And I actually was able to pull some of the people I was going to interview who were specifically in that book, that I was like, oh, this would be a good person to talk to. And I was able to talk to a couple of them, which was really awesome as well.
Thank you for your recommendation, Dr. Sami. And before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and book 101 review in fifth season as well. Comedy 101 in second season, and my food 101 in fifth season too. Geography 101 in its fourth season, and my baby podcast Law 101 and Mental Health 101 Love Letters in its third season, and my movie 101 review and music 101 in its fourth season, and science 101 and sex 101 in its first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. I hope one day I can have also sports 101 with Dr. Sami, and
Sounds good to
looking
me.
Yes, looking forward for that. Sports 101 indeed. So, Dr. Sami, based on your comprehensive research, is fighting a vestigial aspect of hockey destined to fade into near irrelevance? Or it's
Yeah,
something traditional that people or the NHL still doing it?
for sure. No, it's a great question. I think the biggest thing that the research was able to find is that it's an evolving role, right? So this idea of this enforcer role may be gone, but the idea of having these more physical grit grind players is so important. Every NHL team needs it and wants it. So that role of fighting will never go away. As much as the league may want it, or some of the other leagues have removed it, the NHL won't, and it's a really important aspect because of the tradition, because of the motivation, because of the safety that it brings to the players on the ice. Even if it's not there statistically, they all feel it, they all want it, they all need it. So I don't ever see fighting being removed from the game. I think the rules may change and the way that it's used may change, but at the end of the day, it's always going to be there and it won't be a dinosaur thing in the past. I think hitting is one of those things too that's also going to change in the way that it's done, and that the way that it's taught is the key. And that's the biggest thing that my research was able to find, is that we have to teach these things for safety. These players need to know how to hit. They need to know how to fight when they get to the NHL, so that they are prepared for what happens in the physicality of the game. And as long as that happens, the safety will be there, the fans will be there, and the players will want this aspect of the game. And you remove intimidation from hockey, and it won't be an effective game as it is now. So you see it in the last two Stanley Cup champions with the Florida Panthers, and yes, they have a lot of skill, but they grind teams down. They're physical, and so you're still seeing that with teams that become champions as well.
Definitely, Dr. Samuel Vogel-Seidenberg. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. And can you please invite our listeners to support your advocacy, your projects, or anything that you're doing right now?
For sure. Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate that. Thanks for having me. It was really fun. Really enjoyed it. But yeah, please just check out my dissertation, "The Role of Physicality in Professional Hockey: Examining the Impact of Fighting and Hitting on Gameplay, Team Success, and Dynamics." It's on Google Scholar. It's on ProQuest. It's on Dominican Scholar as well. So, and then check out my LinkedIn at Dr. Sammy and my Instagram at Coach Sammy Labs. So, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Dr. Sami Vogel-Seidenberg, thank you so much again for empowering us through sports. So, people, let's empower Dr. Samuel Vogel-Seidenberg, because if you support him, for sure, more and more and more empowering coaching to come, or more and more empowering sports to come. So, Dr. Sami, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
More to come, people. See you soon.